to our second in our leadership series of presentations put on by the Montana State Fire Chiefs Association. As a quick background, we were fortunate enough to be awarded a SAFER grant. One of the things that we wanted to do through the SAFER grant was figure out ways to get little more regional type trainings and information out to our members and the fire service across the state of Montana. And one of the ways that we came up with to do that was through the whole COVID process. Obviously, some of us are fine tuning or at least trying to fine tune our abilities to do Zoom presentations, and figured out that that actually reaches out to a pretty good customer base and has the ability to reach out and touch a lot of folks while we'll still keep our own, don't have to travel so much and keep them down to kind of a shorter duration training type of thing. So if you remember, some of you were able to join with us last month. We had our first presentation dealing with recruitment and retention. Chief Jason Coy out of Wyoming did a presentation for us, and that was very well attended. This is our second one, and we hope to do at least one a month for the next year. See how the success rate of it, and if we can continue on to the performance period of the grant, then we'll certainly do that. So in light of that, we'll ask later on, or feel free to get a hold of us, Michael or Kim, who sent you the link to join up. You know, if you've got any suggestions or ideas of things that you want to talk about or want to hear some discussion about, or presentation type of presentations to be made, by all means, send us your suggestions for what we can do better, how we can improve things, and kind of we'll go from there and see what we can get worked into the process for you. So tonight, just a real quick kind of housekeeping things. Obviously, keep your microphones muted if you can, so we don't get any background noises going on. I say that as our test pages are going off in the background, but and then we will have, there's a chat box with the Zoom feature. So if you have questions going through, you know, go ahead and type those things out. We'll try and get to them. We've got 4 presenters tonight that we'll let them go through their presentations, and then at the end we'll do some questions and answers and discussions with the presenters, and kind of go through that process. But you know, as we go through and looking through some of our participants, I see there's some folks that like Gary Mayhew, I think, is a brand new fire chief. A couple other people that I can see on here. Some of us have been in the system for a while. Some of us are brand new to the system, and as you go through these things, sometimes we get in situations that we go, well, now what? And who can we reach out to? And so we thought this would be a way to kind of introduce you to our partners at the state level that bring different perspectives, different options, different tools, different networks to what our problem might be having, that we might be having at a local level. So for that, we've asked 4 people to present tonight. We'll have Dick Swingling go first, followed by Dick Swingling's with the State Fire Marshal's Office, followed by Delilah Bruno and Jake Gagne, and then Mike DeGrosky from, or Delilah and Jake are from DES, and then Mike DeGrosky from Montana DNRC. And so with that, again, thanks for attending. We hope this is valuable to everybody. And I'll start off with introducing Dick Swingling. Again, he's our State Fire Marshal. And I've got their bios here. I don't think I'm going to read them all, but one of the things that I did think I'd do is pick out some fun facts that I found out in their bios, because some of us have known these folks for a long time. And when I read some of this stuff, I'm like, huh, that's kind of cool. So one of the things that I found out about Dick was he was the first graduating class of C.M. Russell High School in Great Falls, which if anybody knows about the C.M. Russell, I think that was started sometime back in 1966, which is not saying anything about how long he's been in the fire service, but he started as a Great Falls firefighter in 1970, shortly after they got rid of some of the horses and steamers, I think. and he worked his way up through the ranks and eventually became the fire chief in the state of Montana as our state fire marshal. So with that to do, I'll quit going before he gets mad at me and does something to me later on. But with that, Dick, it is all yours. Thanks and welcome.
Thanks very much. And he was right on most of the stuff. There's some corrections I got to make with him down the road about my bio, but no, we're good. So I've been in the fire service for 51 years. One of these days I'm going to have to think about retiring. It might be sooner than later. But anyways, a little bit about the fire marshal's office. The fire marshal's office was created in 1911. So it's been around an awful long time. And most people in the fire service know how to put the wet stuff on the red stuff. But a lot of people don't understand what it is that the fire marshal's office does. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we assist and conduct fire investigations, determine the cause and origin, and aid with the prosecution of intentionally set fires. That's one of our duties. We perform life safety inspections to ensure the adherence to adopted fire codes, rules and regulations that are enacted by the state of Montana in relationship to fire safety. We establish and promote fire prevention programs. We have one of our deputies is into a program that national program that works with fire education. We provide fire and arson investigation instructions to the fire service and law enforcement agencies. We just started that up again. We've had a couple of classes that we're giving, and I think that's very important to get that out there and start doing that again. Fire Marshal's Office also manages the National Fire Reporting Incident System, the NINFIRS program. And if you have problems with that, we're the go-to people on that. We're the expert authority in adoption of codes and maintain the continuity of statewide of provided code interpretation to the fire service. And now a little bit of who we are. You know, we provide, like I said, the investigation assistance to fire prevention and code enforcement services to nearly 400 fire agencies, which most of them are volunteer. And then we aid 56 sheriff's departments, 60 police departments, and other agencies like the Department of Health and Human Services in their request to inspect facilities such as assisted living, group homes, daycares. We assist the Department of Revenue and liquor license when there's a new liquor license or transfer of liquor license for in Montana. We get involved with that. We do fire code enforcement in the rural areas of Montana, the places that don't have certified jurisdictions. So that's mainly out in the rural area, other than the big cities. We do the code enforcement. And we average about 1,400 inspections annually. And we do that with our staff. And just to let you know too, that our office has 6 deputy fire marshals located throughout the state, and myself. So there's 7 of us total. So when most of us, the deputies range from 7 to 13 counties each, depending upon their areas and the population densities. Eastern Montana, obviously, a deputy covers more area because there's less population, but he has a lot of driving time. Fire investigations, we average approximately 35 investigations that we assist with every year. That number is going up. With this COVID in the last year and stuff, we've seen the number of fires increase and the number of fire fatalities increase. And I think there's a reason for it with the COVID. The people are staying home more, they're cooking more, and they're doing things in their houses, and therefore it creates more fires in houses. And the fire fatalities, we had 19 of them last year. We averaged 13 every year. Last year we had 19. And all but one of those were in a residential occupancy, and the other one was in a business occupancy. So those are on the rise. Public education programs, like I said, we have an individual that's starting to present that and get that information out. A lot of it through the Fire Service Training School. Another thing, one of our jobs is to adopt the fire codes. And then everybody after that follows suit and adopts the codes for their jurisdictions. We look at fire protection plans that are being installed in places. We look at above ground fuel tanks, both gasoline and propane, just things that we do. Some of the records that we keep are fire losses in the state. We do that through the NIFRS program. It seems like it increases a lot every year. Like I said, our inspections are increasing, our investigations are increasing, and our fire deaths are increasing. So all that stuff's going up every year. We're trying to get more deputies on hand to get back to where we were. One time we had 14 people on our staff. Today we only have 7 budgetary cuts. We're hurting a little bit. That's kind of an overview of what we do. We invite all of you, and when we're out there doing inspections, if you would like to go along with us to inspect the schools or the daycares or whatever in your area, you are more than welcome. And if that's the case, you need to email us. You can go to our website, Montana State Fire Marshal, and you look at that website and read down to the bottom, just scroll down, and you'll see the areas that each deputy covers. And it says which county they cover and their contact information. So if you would like to go with us on those inspections, you're more than welcome. It's a learning curve for everybody, and it helps with everybody that's got facilities in their area that you get around and look and see what's going on in them. And it also shows you some of the violations that we see. And we like to explain when we find code violations, we'd like to explain what it is that it is and why it's a violation and why it needs to be corrected. It's always an educational process. Some people just don't understand why they need to fix things, but we try to explain it the best we can. So with that, that's about all I have for right now.
Okay, well, thanks, Dick. And again, as he mentioned, that's one of those agencies that we kind of sit out there, or sits out there, and it's not really in the limelight in a lot of different detail or circumstances, but when you need them, late night fire investigation, somebody to come out and help, you don't know quite which direction to turn. You can always turn to the fire marshal's office or whoever that local deputy might be, and be able to get some guidance if they can't be out there in person, some guidance, tell you how to handle some things or different ways to manage situations that you might encounter out in our local areas. I forgot to mention as well, this is being recorded, so it'll be available at a later date. If you know somebody that wanted to be on tonight that couldn't, or you find the information useful, or you wanted to go back and listen to a certain part of it, it will be available. Also check that chat box as we go along. Some of the speakers' presentations, contact information, that kind of stuff will be available in that chat box as well. So again, as we kind of move along, another agency that we partner with, sometimes we don't know a lot about, but is that of DES, so Disaster and Emergency Services across the state of Montana. We often think of DNRC as being our wildland folks. DES is kind of more of an all hazards, all risk, some of those things that we don't encounter type of agencies very often. And so to start off our presentation about DES, we have Delilah Bruno, who is actually a Montana girl, was born in Libby. She worked for the Department of Public Health and Human Services for many years as the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program Director. And she's got a Governor's Award for excellence in performance of her work on the H1N1 influenza response within the state in 2009. She also worked to develop an Ebola emergency response plan for the state in 2014. And Delilah is a veteran, has served our country. She has 4 years as a Signal Corps officer in well, that was a pretty tough station that you had there, Delilah, in Hawaii. I'm sure that one was tough to handle. But she also, in all due respect, did complete a tour in Afghanistan in support of Operations Freedom. So thank you for your service, and feel free to tell us about DES, Delilah.
Great. Well, thanks, Rich. I appreciate the introduction. So yes, I'm the administrator for disaster and emergency services at the state of Montana. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be here tonight. So, I mean, of course, you know, we all know that relationships are invaluable when it comes to, you know, having our bad day. Our relationships we make on blue sky days, they are irreplaceable when it comes to that bad day. So what disaster and emergency services, we really focus on 4 different areas. We of course focus on our disaster preparedness, disaster mitigation, response, and recovery. And I think the area that we probably, you know, interact the most with the fire services is often in that response side, as DNRC is engaging in wildfires. Occasionally DES will be brought in, but there's a lot more to DES than that piece. Of course, every county has a local emergency manager, a DES coordinator. If you don't know who that person is, I'd encourage you to reach out and find out the name of that person. If you need our help linking up with that person, we're happy to do that. Because they definitely know the ins and the outs of the program and how to access resources at the state level day or night through our duty officer program. So they're excellent professionals to know and to work with. And again, I just encourage you all to build a good relationship with those folks. We also have 6 district field officers. So they're state of Montana employees, but they kind of provide a little bit more oversight and a little bit more of a reach into communities across the state. And helping those local emergency managers out. And they can really be counted on to reach in and help with things like grant applications. So we actually manage a myriad of grants, from preparedness grants and mitigation grants, as well as our public assistance reimbursement when post-disaster happens and we're trying to put things back together. Those recovery grants, we manage that as well. So they know the ins and outs of those programs, and if you ever have questions related to what funding's available, you know, they're good go-to people for that ask. I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with like the Homeland Security grants. Those are 100% federally funded. Different entities can apply for funding through that program. And again, it's just an opportunity that's out there. One of the most exciting programs we have that we oversee is in our mitigation area. It's for a program called BRIC, or Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. And that's again, a mitigation program that allows communities to figure out how to buy down risk, or just, you know, eliminate risk of hazards in their area. So obviously fuel reduction and things with wildland fire are definitely something that would qualify in this program, as well as other things like earthquake preparedness and you know, stabilizing buildings, landslide stabilization, anything that might reduce the impact a hazard would have on a community. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Another area that DES can help out with is in the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, and that's what Jake Gagne is here to talk a little bit about today. But hopefully you've all heard about EMAC. It's a governor-to-governor agreement that allows us to kind of share resources around the state. And I won't steal Jake's thunder, but I do want to say that that's a program we're proud of, and I'm happy that the fire chiefs can engage in and really value anytime you guys help out in that area and encourage your participation there. So Rich, I'll stop there and let Jake have the rest of the time here.
Thanks, Delilah. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just want to talk about a couple things. Thank you for joining this evening. And one of the things we want to really stress upon is really get in and know your local emergency manager. And even when we're dealing with situations like we had in the fires in the last several years, your emergency manager are really key in working on the evacuations and sheltering, and working with Mike DeGrosky's team and the DNRC and region public on our fire management assistance grants. If we get to that point, we'll submit those. And just in the last 4 years, we've submitted almost 15. So we've had quite a few fire management assistance grants that we really want the fire chiefs to know about, working with your local emergency managers. And I don't want to take too much from Mike DeGrosky, but that's really a good program. And like Delilah did talk about with mitigation, that does come with additional funding for post-fire mitigation. And there's a lot to talk about. And if you have any questions, please feel free to answer them at the end. It's also really important. We're working on, really want to focus on all hazards like Chief Calgar talked about. And we're going to talk about not just fires, but we really stress on having an incident manager. Your emergency manager, it could be a fire chief. It's really up to your county elected officials and working within your jurisdictions. And it's really important because some interesting stats on the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. It's been around for about 25 years. It really got started by Hurricane Andrew back in 1992 with the Southern governors coming up with a Southern Emergency Management Compact. And then all the governors and all the territories bought in. And it's all states and 5 different territories have ratified it. Just in Montana, in the last 5 years alone, we've sent out 324 people from 79 different agencies to 7 different states. We'll even go back to DAPL, North Dakota, when they were having a bad couple months. Then the hurricanes and fires of 2017 with Florida, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then just recently with Oregon and California and their fires, and even some flooding that we had in 2019 back in Oklahoma. So really, it's all hazards. Our biggest resource that we send out is our Wildland Firefighters, our type 1, type 3, type 5, and type 6 engines. And the fire chiefs have been great to work with, working with the counties and the emergency managers and the DNRC. We obviously got to take care of our own state, and the governor is going to work with the director of the DNRC on what resources we need to keep in the state. But really, fire season, as you all know, is 12 months out of the year. And we've already been working with other states in the Dakotas with their National Guard's been supporting some of their fires they've had in the last month. To the tune of all those agencies, it's just about under $9 million for support that the state that asks for help will pay us back, and then we'll pay the resource providers back on. And the average is about 6 months. Sometimes it could take 9 months, depending on how bad the disaster is. And most of the deployments are between 14 and 21 days. We have had some go up to 30 days just last year. And then in 2017, we had some 30-day deployments for hospital repairs down in the Virgin Islands. And it's a really good program. The DNRC's been a great partner, and all the fire chiefs that have been around for a while, they've got some pretty good mission ready packages built, and it's usually a quick notification, always comes in on a weekend late at night, and usually we have crews rolling in within 4 to 8 hours. So it's great response time, and we really appreciate the firefighters and all hazards personnel. And even if you're a firefighter and you're on a type 3 all hazards team, Florida had a pretty bad hurricane with Hurricane Michael. We sent a type 3 team down there, and that county that had them, they were completely shut off, no communications. They loved that team. It was a type 3 team out of Missoula. They did a great job. And even in a recent pandemic, that same type 3 team went down to the Northern Cheyenne and helped them out for a couple weeks. So it's been a really busy last 5 years. There's no shortage of all hazards and disasters. I would just encourage you to work with your local emergency manager and get to know them really well. And I'll hold any, and I do also want to say it's on our state took over in September as the national coordinating state for all states to assist them with policy and procedures on any types of deployments through EMAC or reimbursements. And it's been quite a bit of work and a big learning curve, to say the least. So we'll have that through March of 2022, and then it'll go to the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'll turn it back to you, Chief Calgar.
Okay, thanks, Jake. I meant to introduce you first, but I couldn't get my mute off. So now that he's done, I'll introduce him. So that was Jake Gagne. And as he said, he's the response and mitigation recovery chief there with DES. And again, I'll point out that Jake also, as a veteran, has served our country 2 deployments to Iraq, and we thank you too, Jake, for your service. I appreciate that very much. You know, again, kind of our theme with a lot of this is that, you know, these are agencies, the 2 that we've talked about predominantly so far with State Fire Marshal's Office and DES, may not necessarily present with a lot of stuff for us in what we traditionally known as like rolling stock with DNRC and that kind of stuff. But they have the connections, like we always say with DES, they've got the connection to the larger scale FEMA checkbook kind of thing that goes along with those, you know, and while their side of things may not necessarily be what we would typically maybe call our 911 out the door response kind of thing, what their systems are really set up is to, how do they bolster those longer term responses, those things that we're not going to get over done with in the next 12 to 14 hours. In fact, this may be a 2 or 3 day deal or longer. And as we'll go on and we get the presentation from Mike DeGrosky on DNRC, they have some limitations from the DNRC side of things on what some of their checkbook can pay for, where that's where DES comes in to take some of those other avenues. For those of you that don't know it as well, all of our state hazmat teams are coordinated through DES. There's 6 regional hazmat teams across the state of Montana, you know, that are a joint deployment system through local agencies such as Bozeman Fire, Billings Fire, Great Falls Fire, those type of things, and they're funded in part or large part by DES. And so that's another system that they offer us as local fire chiefs to be able to help us out there. So again, thanks Delilah, Jake, for your presentations. We appreciate that. We'll get back with you here with any questions as we go along. So our last presenter then tonight is Chief DeGrosky, Mike DeGrosky with DNRC. Mike is, he was with DNRC for many years and then took a little side trip to become the chief executive of the Guidance Group, which was a consulting firm that specialized in human and organizational aspects of the fire and emergency services. He has both wildland and structural background. He's got a PhD in business administration from the University of Montana. He's got degrees from the School of Forestry, Fort Hays State University. Pretty well-rounded, learned guy. I think I pronounced that right. But anyway, so I'll turn it over to you, Chief DeGrosky.
Thanks, Chief, and good evening. Mike DeGrosky, Fire Protection Bureau Chief for the DNRC, and thanks for the invitation tonight. For us, it's a little bit different because we're part of a department that does a whole lot of things along across a broad spectrum, everything from, you know, water quality to forestry, and we are a program within that larger natural resources agency. So I'm not going to focus on what the DNRC does. I'm going to focus on what the DNRC Fire Protection Program does. And I'm going to try to share my screen and hopefully I won't screw it up too badly here. Are seeing that?
Yep.
Okay, so there is our fire protection program mission statement. We protect lives, property, and natural resources from wildfire by providing safe and effective services to Montana's citizens, as well as leadership, coordination, and resources to the state's wildfire organizations. So that's our fundamental mission. Our theme tonight is partnerships and resources, and you know, like Delilah mentioned, relationships are so critical to what we do, and kind of evidence of the importance to us is we have 7 core values that guide our program, and one of those core values is our success depends on healthy relationships, both internal and external. And there is no relationship in our business, in our agency, that is more important than the partnership between local government fire and the DNRC. We cannot carry out our mission without you. We deliver service in 2 ways. We have direct protection, where DNRC is the first response agency on about 5.5 million acres. But at the other 45 million acres that we have responsibility for, we deliver service through the county co-op arrangement. And that's where I'll focus most of my comments from this point forward. It's tough to be, I honestly got to say, it's tough to be a fire chief in Montana without somehow coming into contact with the DNRC. For some people, that's a good thing. For some people, that's a bad thing. But I think it's a true thing. If you have a jurisdiction that protects any sizable amount of vegetation outside of a city limit, there's a good chance that you are participating in the state county cooperative fire management arrangement or county co-op. So we come in contact with our local government partners a lot. That county co-op program is a screaming bargain for Montana citizens. That's how we deliver fire protection services to 45 million acres of state and private land. That's a lot of ground. And honestly, we through the county co-op, we do that for about $1.15 an acre, and there's no one in the country that can do better than that. All 56 counties have areas of county co-op protection, so there's a good chance that if you're a fire chief outside of a municipality, you are providing some sort of fire protection within the county co-op. The interesting thing about the way the county co-op works is fire chiefs have responsibilities for all fires in their jurisdiction. We have statutory responsibility for all fires on state and private land across the state, which means we both have statutory responsibilities on the same chunk of dirt. And the way the county co-op arrangement works is we ask you to redeem both your responsibilities and our responsibilities. So on 45 million acres of Montana, local government fire departments through an agreement with the county provide initial and extended attack services for wildland fires. And I want to show you just but let's, I'll show how we see our responsibility, I guess, is the best way to put it. So our fundamental role in the county co-op arrangement is to build and maintain the capacity of local government so that local firefighters routinely succeed on initial attack and avoid the need for large-scale intervention by the DNRC or our federal partners. And, I want to be the first person to acknowledge that every year, literally thousands of wildland fires in Montana get put out by local government firefighters in which the DNRC has no direct action. And it's kind of funny because people, including legislators, say to me, hey, your DNRC doesn't put out fires where I live. Our local government, or our local fire department does that. And my response to them, they mean that as kind of a diss. And I'm like, perfect. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. And that's what we want. Now, of course, we also intervene to help, if a fire is exceeding your fire department's capacity or your county's capacity, we are going to be right there to intervene with you because the whole intent is to keep fires small, keep them cheap, keep them from damaging property, keep them from hurting people. So we're there to intervene, to help make that happen. And of course, if a fire completely exceeds the county's capacity, we're there to come in and manage that fire. And it's a tremendous insurance policy for your county. I think we all know what a big wildland fire costs these days, and a single fire could bankrupt most Montana counties. So the state provides you with a really, really great insurance policy. The other thing we do is we provide lots of training and lots of equipment. And I think there's probably many chiefs on the call here who have a piece of white iron, as we call it, in your fire station, some sort of a fire engine or something that we've developed for you. We've got approximately 300 units out across the state that are stationed everywhere from city fire stations to a shed on a ranch. And those are the backbone of the initial attack arrangement in a lot of parts of the state. The other thing is we have access to federal property programs that through which we make equipment available to you. And I'm going to tell you a number that might be a little surprising. Is we have placed equipment in local government fire departments all over this state totaling $95 million. And we're happy to do that. It's a big part of what we do for you. So training, equipment, and a screaming good insurance policy. You know, one of the things, if you're a new chief, if you're a relatively new chief, I would check with your county commissioners and your county fire warden. Every county has one, and see if you are providing protection within the county, an area of county co-op fire protection. One of the interesting things about the county co-op arrangement is our agreement. The DNRC's agreement is with the county, but of course, in most places, it's individual fire departments that are actually executing that agreement. Just to close, I'll say there is no more important partnership to the DNRC than our partnership with local government. It is the backbone of how we provide service, whether that's in direct protection areas or in areas of county co-op. And through our association with the Chiefs Association and also through the County Fire Wardens Association, we are committed to just constantly working on and strengthening that partnership. Chief Gauger, I'll turn it back to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chief DeGrosky. Appreciate that. You know, I wanted to kind of stress a little bit as we've gone through this process here to talk about one of the things that we keep hearing is the relationships. And Mike kind of alluded to it at the end, is through the board of directors with the Montana State Chiefs Association. Each one of these agencies sits on our board of directors as ex officio members, because that in our mind, having that outreach and that capability to know these folks one-on-one means that we solve a lot of potential issues before they really become issues. We all know historically that sometimes our needs might be different than what they look like at the state level, or our direction, our thought processes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But in the past, it has been. That led us to form the State Wildland Committee many years ago when I'll be bluntly honest, DNRC and some of the state chiefs didn't think so well of each other. And we thought, you know, our relationship is vital enough, as Mike brought out, that they couldn't do it without us. And I'd venture to say we can't do it without them as well. That we figured out real quick that we needed to sit down and we needed to fix some of this stuff. Well, doesn't mean that we always come out with the exact same philosophy on everything, but that's not what a good team necessarily is about either. It's about building those relationships to know how to address those situations when the time comes out. And so I think that's really kind of what the focus of tonight's presentation is that we're all going to run into something at some level in our career that we just don't have that slide tray for. I think, Gary, that was kind of a reference back to how long some of us have been in the business. It would be a PowerPoint presentation today, I guess. But to have that slide tray of how did we do this in times past, and really when we kind of run out of answers or something to that effect, then all of a sudden now we've got connections with folks that we can reach out there and go, well, now what do we do? This is a story from way back, but it just comes into play here that years ago we had a tire fire going on here outside of Columbus, and our first initial thought was, hey, this is a hazmat deal, and DES should probably be involved in it. And we called DES, and they said, well, we really don't know what to do with a bunch of tires. And they kindly threw DNRC under the bus, and somehow we had everybody involved and finally got the situation mitigated. But it took everybody within the alphabet soup of the state agencies to really mitigate that situation. And so that's the kind of things that we want everybody to be comfortable with, of knowing who these folks are, what their offices have to answer or to offer. In some cases, such as DNRC, we all know there can be white trucks and 3 or 4 strike teams of them, plus a incident command team and some helicopters flying around fairly quickly. With DES, it's not that same set of toys. It's going to look differently what that response is, and same thing from the state fire marshal's office. But that doesn't exclude the importance of any one of those agencies to what we do in the bigger picture and how we successfully do it at a local level. So thank you all for the presentations. This is an opportunity that we can throw out there. Is there any questions from the crowd? Comments that we could present to our speakers? I guess to do that, I probably should monitor.
You're muted, Chief Cowger.
Please don't tell me I was muted that whole time. Good grief, there's no way I can repeat all that. But
You were muted that whole time.
oh, great. Well, thanks for telling me.
Just the question. Just
Okay.
the question. We heard your other.
You probably wished I was muted for that whole video. Chief DeGrosky, can you tell me, so the relationship between DNRC and the fire departments, what's that look like on a legal standing?
Yeah, so as I alluded to, there's a section of the Montana Code Annotated that applies to local government and fire departments in Chapter 7. Then there's a whole section of the MCA that applies to us, which is in Chapter 76, and it assigns responsibilities to both of us. And so for us, it says that we're responsible for all wildland fires, or for providing fire protection for wildland fires on all state and private land. And then I think that I hope that fire chiefs have looked into their statutory responsibilities in Chapter 7, and those two things overlap. And in a lot of places, our protection actually overlaps, where a piece of DNRC direct protection is also within a rural fire district, and we both respond to the same fire. The interesting thing about that is that has been brought to the attention of the legislature many times over the years, and the legislative intent has been, we like stacked fire protection. That's a good thing for Montana citizens. So we're going to keep the laws just as they are, where your rural fire district and the DNRC have jurisdiction for the same chunk of dirt. And what's really important is that we just have really strong local relationships that allow us to both redeem our responsibilities in a way that makes sense for the local taxpayers. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I hope so. Rich, I can't see if your mouth is moving because of your mustache, but we can't hear you.
Well, for some reason, my unmuting ability went away. No, that does good, Mike. Another thing we'll throw out there again for folks, and sometimes I don't know if everybody realizes it, but when you look at that bigger scale picture, so you got state level wildland management, and we also have our federal level wildland management. In the mix of that whole thing, we have what was known as the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group, which oversees all of Montana, or all of North Dakota, part of Idaho, and a small chunk of South Dakota, so the Northern Rockies geographic area. And what's unique to the Northern Rockies is that that is one of the few geographic areas that allows local government and local participation at that 30,000, well, this might even be the 50,000 foot level policy guidance on what wildland fire looks like. So the state chiefs have a seat at the table, DES has a seat at the table, your local fire wardens have a seat at the table. Montana Peace Officers Association has a seat at the table, which is very unique. That is something that's not replicated across the United States. So we do have that impact to drive when we see something that we don't think is quite right, which is pretty cool. Mike, another question back to you. You talked about the county co-op program, which is usually done at the county level. And so how does that then involve us as local fire chiefs? If you're signing those agreements at the county level, how are we involved in that?
You muted, Mike.
Got you back. Thanks. And I'll take a swing at it. And I forgot to mention earlier that Corey Callanan, who's our county co-op program manager, is also listening in. So if I screw it up, he can rescue me. So yeah, the agreement between, or the agreement with the DNRC is with your county commission. And but underneath that agreement, there is an operating plan, and the operating plan's got to recognizes that in some cases the county is the fire department. You know, I'll pick on Custer County has a county fire department. So sometimes the agreements with the county and the fire department is the county, but in most places the agreements with the county, but it's actually executed by individual fire departments and rural fire districts. And we acknowledge that the agreement is not directly with the fire departments. So it's important, I would say, for the county co-op arrangement to work well for the commissioners, the fire warden, and the fire.
You got muted again, Mike, for some reason. Sorry.
I don't know how. So, you know, I think it's important to note, or what's most important for things to work. It would be extremely valuable for the county commissioners, the county fire warden, the fire chiefs, and the DNRC to all be talking, all be on the same page about how we execute that agreement in County XYZ. I'll just mention that Corey is leading up an effort to take us to what we lovingly call County Co-op 2.0, a little bit of an improvement and modernization to the County Co-op program. And this is one of the key issues that we're working on, is how do you make an agreement most effective when the agreement's with the county, but it's actually executed by a rural fire district that is not technically the county. I'm gonna let Corey in. Corey, you got anything you want to add?
Hey, Chief, he was bumped off, but he just joined again. So maybe just give him 1 second to get get back in.
Yeah. You probably didn't hear what I said anyway, so. Corey, you in the room? All right, well, I hope that answered the question. Oh, there's Corey. Did you hear anything I said? Do you want to correct anything I said? You're muted.
Sorry, Mike, I did miss that. I'm having technical difficulties this evening, so.
think our mute's gone wild here.
Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but if whoever asked it once, if that didn't answer the question, just let Chief Cowger know and we'll give it our best shot.
See, Steve, did you have a question? Steve, that went away.
Here we go.
There we go. Steve Hedstrom, you got a question?
Yeah, Steve has just a comment. I'm Fire Chief and Warden John Judith Basin County, and I want to take and throw a big hooray out for DNRC because we're a small county, limited resources. And I'll tell you, in the past year, DNRC made all the difference in the world for us. You know, the equipment, the training, and we've had a couple of big fires where they had to bring in the air show. We would have lost tens of thousands of acres if it hadn't been for DNRC and their assistance. And I tell you, the other chiefs out there, fire wardens, take advantage of it because it is well worth the dollars and the time. And if you've got a legislature, you go talk to those folks and tell them how important DNRC is to these firefighters out here.
Thanks, Chief. That's really great feedback, and I'll get you that $20.
See, and I was just going to say that was not a paid advertisement, just for the sake of clarity. But thanks, Chief. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, I really do appreciate the feedback very much. Thanks.
Any other questions from folks? Okay, we try to keep these at about an hour. We're very close. There will be in the chat box some information coming up that. Oh, so Steve mentioned the fire warden. Can any of you explain where they fit in? That sounds like a good Corey question. Are you still available, Corey?
Yeah, let's toss that one to Corey if he can jump on. He's actually monitoring 2 meetings.
So without much context, so the county fire warden is an individual appointed by the county commissioners, and they act as a liaison and a coordinator between the DNRC, local DNRC land office, and the fire occurrence going on within the county. So sometimes the county fire warden has some administrative role or some administrative oversight, but a lot of times they don't. They're just they're the coordinator liaison that interfaces between county government, local fire organizations, and the state, and is that conduit of information that we use to help get the county assistance when a fire has exceeded the county capability, or when we're looking at placing equipment. The county fire wardens are our go-to person there. So hopefully that answers your question.
Looks like it so far. Preston Gilmore, can you just poke your chief there? Because I think he fell asleep. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so in the chat box, there's that leadership training evaluation completion survey. We ask that you fill that out. Honestly, we want to know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, so we can fix it. Make a valuable presentation to everybody out there. We ask that you spread the word that we're trying to do this. We've got another one coming up, be May 12th. That will be some presentations about motivating folks done by 2 of our representatives from the Montana State Fire Training School. So that should be a good one as well. And again, just want to thank everybody for taking their time. Thank our presenters for giving us that information and a little insight as to how your organizations really are part of what we do at the local level, and vice versa, how we can assist you when it comes to your jobs as we go along. And again, to kind of reemphasize, the whole thing is about those relationships. There was a lot of new names that I didn't necessarily recognize on this call tonight. Feel free to reach out to any of us through the state board or the local agencies, DES, DNRC, with any kind of questions that you have. We like to think that we're somewhat fairly smart people, but the smartest part about us is that if we don't know the answer, we know other people that are probably a lot smarter that can get you the answer. And that's really what networking is all about, to be able to build those systems. So on behalf of the Board of Directors of Montana State Fire Chiefs Association, and our presenters tonight. Thanks everybody for taking the time to be here. And hopefully we'll see you again May 12th. We'll get that information out. Until then, everybody take care and be safe.
Thank you, fine people.
Thanks, Ed, for joining up tonight.
You bet. Good to see you guys again.
Thanks, Mike, Delilah, Dick, Jake, appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.